Good morning. Hi, my name is Richard Gordon. My title is Director of International Business Development at the South African Medical Research Council. The SAMRC is the largest fund of health research in Africa, obviously using local resources. And we are an organization that conducts research, it funds research, and it funds extramural research within South Africa and in sub-Saharan Africa, focusing really at the disease burden of South Africa, HIV, TB, and NCDs being the main priority of the diseases. So many people ask, what ways can we, and why is it important to do tech transfer into Africa? And I think the recent history of the last 24 months, 12 months around COVID is a perfect example. I think it's quite widely acknowledged that the quickest way to get enabling technologies into an entity or into countries is through a tech transfer, and normally a tech transfer to an existing organization. Going into a new country from another country with no history in the area, starting from scratch tends to take years, if not more than half a decade, to get up set from scratch. Therefore, it really lends itself to this idea that the quickest way to get access to technologies is through a technology transfer. So the concept behind the spoke and the hub model of the mRNA-Hub is essentially that, is to transfer technologies to a number of entities that have the same technologies, where if the next pandemic happens, you are able to scale and transfer this technology rapidly throughout a network of manufacturing facilities across Africa, Latin America, and Southeast Asia. So essentially how this program breaks down, there's three essential components of the mRNA-Hub. The first component is the Afrigen component, which is really to demonstrate that an mRNA-based technology can be manufactured on the African continent. There was a hope that a technology partner would come in and willing to do a tech transfer to Africa, but that hasn't really materialized to date. So essentially South Africa and Africa are having to go back to the beginning and to try and develop it ourselves. This is working quite well, and there have been a number of partners outside of within the universities within South Africa who are coming in and contributing intellectual property and development. And the goal is to develop a vaccine candidate to be tested for COVID early in 2023. The second objective of the program is to transfer this technology to spokes. The first spoke being BioVac in Cape Town in South Africa, and then to the other 14 spokes around the world. Training, bringing those scientists to Africa, training, and then African scientists going over to those organizations and ensuring the platforms and technologies are embedded there. The last component is the component that is managed by the Medical Research Council in South Africa, is really around sustainability. Is what are these facilities going to do after COVID? And having BioVac and Afrigen, where several tens of millions of rand and euros have been invested in facilities, and they've got nothing to work on. So it's really about this concept of developing a pipeline of homegrown innovations for Africa, by Africa, is really what objective number 3 is for the mRNA-based program. So the role of the South African Medical Research Council when it comes to the mRNA-Hub kind of originated from April in 2021. And that was when the announcement of the WHO call for the Technology Transfer Hub came out. And there were several companies in South Africa that existed, Afrigen and BioVac being the first two, that were really looking at the early stage product development and research, and then BioVac doing the final full-finish aspect. But there wasn't really a component in the program that was looking at long-term sustainability. Sustainability is, well, what was this facility going to do, or these facilities do, after the pandemic? And there was lots of short-term thinking and not so much long-term thinking. So essentially what the SAMRC did was wrote a component in the last component, which we call Objective 3, was looking at establishing a research consortium around vaccines that are going to be needed after COVID. Vaccines for Africa, looking to address the disease burdens of Africa. So if you're in South Africa, TB and HIV would be probably number 1 and 2 by a long distance. But other parts of Africa, they would have different priority diseases. Lassa, chikungunya, dengue, West Nile virus, etc., just to name a few. So the hub is a concept where the WHO was looking to establish a hub that would reach out to different spokes around the continent, where a technology would be transferred or developed at the hub in South Africa and then transferred to partners. So in the initial phases, the hub is really focusing at COVID only. And in this case, looking at making a lookalike of what exists of current vaccines and looking to develop the technologies that can be passed on to the spokes around the different parts of the continent. So there's 15 spokes currently. There's likely to be more that are added. These are, in most cases, companies that exist in different parts of the world, Latin America, Africa, the Far East, who are looking to absorb this technology. Some companies or spokes make vaccines for other diseases using other platforms and are looking to establish an mRNA technology base, where others are actually greenfields. They are brand new companies looking to get set up and established. So it's a whole range. And spokes are looking to work with the hub for many different reasons. Building capacity from scratch, or just learning best practice from other entities on how they have done it today. So the spokes are all in low and middle income countries who are keen protagonists to accept this technology that are brought. And the diagram that is shown to you now will illustrate the different components of where they are in the world. So for technology transfer to happen, there's a number of different components. At face value, you obviously need somebody who has got technology they wish to transfer, and on the reverse end, technology that they're willing to receive and accept and have the infrastructure that are able to adopt this technology. Related to that is the very important but often overlooked component of skills generation, as you need to develop an entire workforce to man an industry of this nature. The unique thing about mRNA is the fact that this is new technology for the world. There's very few countries or companies that exist that do this technology and have experience in this technology. So whoever is doing this technology transfer skills development is going to be a major component within that. To make these kinds of investments sustainable, there are a number of different important factors. At the operational level, the standards that are set, the accreditation, the facilities, the infrastructure, the skills, the HR component to make these things work, that's at a basic level of what you will need. There's the regulatory component. Is your regulator to the right level of accreditation that you can come and audit and inspect and accredit facilities of this nature to handle this mRNA? But then probably the most important and very seldom spoken about is the buyer. Who's going to buy these vaccines? How is it going to integrate with the buying and procurement of Gavi and all the other entities that are in the world who buy vaccines for low and middle income countries? So there's many different facets around capacity, skills, infrastructure, regulatory, and market shaping and access that are really important in this program. So this program has received phenomenal support from across the globe. It's often been referred to, not quite sure who coined the phrase, but the most exciting program in global health that's going on at the moment. And has received huge support, particularly led by Europe, France, Germany, the Netherlands, Belgium, who've put financial support and huge political support in associating with the European Commission. You look at North America, the USA, Canada, who've been really strong proponents and funders of this program to date. So in addition to the funding and political support that have been supplied by many different development agencies in many of the G7 countries, there's been also fantastic support from biotech and industry around the world. The recent announcement of Afrigen with collaborative partners and CRADA research agreements with Belgian biotech companies, the US NIH VRC, are two early examples of how this whole mandate of organizations who typically haven't done a lot, particularly in the Belgian biotech case with Africa, is really moving the dial in some of these partnerships. You add in civil society, who've been huge supporters of this program. I think it's fair to say that this program has captured the imagination of governments, collaborative partners in biotechs, and the civil society all in one program. Okay. So we're approximately a year into the program, and from an almost standing start, the program has made great success. Small batches of product have been made and tested in immunology assays, and the data is looking promising. We're looking to go into preclinical studies in the next few months with the goal of launching the first clinical trial on an mRNA made in Africa vaccine in 2023. Many organizations and governments ask how we can support or how they can support the initiatives going on in Africa. And I think from my perspective, there would be two. The first one is collaborate and don't duplicate. There's many examples of partners who look to collaborate but end up duplicating, and I think that is something we must try and avoid at all costs in the space. Second point I would like to make is there are a number of very capable organizations in Africa that are ready to partner. And the model that has tended to dominate in many of the organizational kind of business models has been this desire of organizations to set up their own shop in Africa. And I think the model really that we want to be focusing on is collaboration with existing entities and again, in a sense, not duplicating. And the last aspect is about awareness. Africa has value to add. It's got innovation to add into the process. And I think the dynamic of Africa being this series of countries mostly in the Southern Hemisphere who need innovation and collaboration for partners to change the dynamic to such that where Africa can be seen as a net contributor to intellectual property and innovation that can be incorporated into products that could be global. So when it comes to the role of Germany have been very strong supporters of building health-related technology in Africa, whether it's drug manufacturing, vaccine manufacturing. Germany are important partners. They're huge partners in the global in the global equity world, in the business world. Germany's economy is very large. So therefore, what countries like in Europe and Germany has been a prime example. When they talk, people tend to listen. So what can they do to support us? I think just support what we're trying to do. Support us and stop any duplication that is tending to happen, and empower companies to collaborate and to see how 1 + 1 can make 5, and that we're not all working in a very fragmented, siloed market in Africa. So at the political level, I think there's lots that can be done to support this program in Africa, and I think that would be the key message that I would have to give. And I just would like to thank the organizers for this opportunity to come and speak to you today. It's the first kind of talk I've given like this nature. I hope it was useful, and I look forward to any follow-ups that you may have. Thank you.